Back here on CBS Sports HQ, it is Tuesday, so you know what that means. We got to get our fantasy lineup straight. It is the Week 5 Waiver Wire walkthrough with the squad. Dave, Richard, Jamey, Eisenberg. Unfortunately, some really big names went down with injuries, especially in the wide receiver department. Malik Nabers, Tyreek Hill. We know Lamar has a hamstring injury. We're not really sure exactly what's going on with him, but hey, maybe you want to hit the waivers, get a insurance policy. We have the guys here to walk us through it. We're going to go through wide receivers first of all, because obviously we have Tyreek Hill, Malik Nabers, both out with some very serious knee injuries. They're going to miss the rest of the season. Guys, this is probably some folks' first, second round picks in their fantasy league. So Jamey, who are some guys that we need to target here on waivers?
So wide receiver, the first name I would go look for is actually what I would consider to be the Malik Nabers replacement, and that's Darius Slayton. So we saw last year there was Nabers missed 2 games, and Slayton averaged 11 targets per game. Actually had 11 targets exactly in each of the 2 games that Nabers was missing. Clearly there was a different quarterback at the time. Jackson Dart's not going to be the starter, and he did not throw very much in his first start, but they were playing with a lead. I don't expect the Giants to be playing with the lead very often, so I think Slayton's got a big opportunity in front of him here. He just does different things when he's with the other guys healthy. Nabers healthy, Wan'Dale Robinson healthy. He's more of a deep threat type of player. They move him around throughout the offense, and I think that's what Brian Daboll will do. So I'm very excited about picking him up and seeing what happens moving forward for him. Also, Wan'Dale Robinson. So we go by a threshold of 65% or less. He's at 66%, so we're fudging a little bit here. In the 2 games that Nabers missed last year, he was averaging 13 PPR points per game. 1 big game, 1 disappointing or average game. But we saw already 2 great games for Wan'Dale Robinson, 2 mediocre games for him. But I think those are the 2 guys you look at. Outside of the Giants guys, though, Romeo Doubs on a bye, just had a 3-touchdown game. I think you want to look at him clearly because without Jaden Reed there, we saw really one game where they were free. They were clamped down against the Browns in week 3. They get to play the Cowboys in week 4, so it was a good situation for him. Jalen Coker hopefully will return this week, and the schedule for the Panthers is absolutely fantastic. Get the Dolphins this week, get the Cowboys next week, so it's a great setup for Jalen Coker. Io Manor could be continuing to emerge as the number 1 receiver there for the Titans. Marvin Mims coming off a strong game. And then Malik Washington's really the one that's got a little bit of a wild card scenario at play here. He has not done much through the first 18 games of his career, second-year wide receiver, but obviously without Tyreek Hill now, there's a chance for him to get more targets. I think it's going to be still concentrated to Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, and now Darren Waller, but Washington's somebody to pick up in deeper leagues.
So, Dave, we want to talk about the impacts, of course, for Miami and with the Giants now that both of their big-time receivers are out. So let's start with Miami. Jamey, you kind of touched on it here, but what does that mean for Tua, the run game, all the things?
I think it won't change their offensive philosophy very much, but I do think that we will see, number one, defenses are going to play them a lot differently because now they don't have somebody with Tyreek Hill's threatening speed downfield. Waddle's fast. Malik Washington's fast, but those guys aren't Tyreek Hill. So I have a hard time believing that defenses are going to play them the exact same way. You said it. I think they're going to run the ball a little bit more. They might revert back to what they did last year, a lot of those short throws, and that's where Malik Washington can come into play for fantasy managers because he's already gotten a bunch of those short screens, and he does have enough speed to make a play after the catch. I do think Darren Waller obviously will be involved as well. I don't think of him the same way they think of Jonnu Smith. He can do what Jonnu Smith did last year, but I don't know if he can necessarily be locked into getting like targets at the line of scrimmage, behind the line of scrimmage. I think he's got enough speed where he can win 5-10 yards downfield. We saw him obviously score the 2 touchdowns. That's obviously going to make him a red zone factor. He's an interesting tight end to pick up. We'll talk about him. New York, it's a little bit different because I think with Jackson Dart under center, they're going to run a little bit more. I think they lean into their run game now with Dart, with Cam Skadbu. Eventually Tyrone Tracy will be back. He'll work in there as well. And I don't think they're going to target downfield nearly as much. They definitely don't have somebody like Malik Nabers in that offense. Darius Slayton's going to get a lot of looks downfield. I think his ADOT's going to come down a little bit as well, and Wan'Dale Robinson's going to keep his role as a short area target. That's an offense that I expect to be a lot less explosive without Malik Nabers.
Just one thing on Jalen Waddle. So Tyreek Hill was averaging 7.7 targets per game, so just 8 targets per game. Jalen Waddle's got 26 games in his career with 8+ targets. He's averaging 18.9 PPR points per game when he gets 8+ targets. So if the bump comes, right now he's about 6 targets per game, if the bump comes, because you figure 2 targets probably safe, he could be absolutely astronomical right now. So the Jalen Waddle rocket ships are all taken off right now because unfortunately with Tyreek Hill out, it's going to be a big scenario.
That's awesome for the people that drafted Jalen Waddle as well, because a lot of people did it reluctantly. They knew that he was the number 2 guy there. Now he's the number 1 guy there. Don't trade him. Hang on to him. Expect big things.
Yeah, Waddle was one of the head scratchers during drafts. I'm like, do I do it? Do I not? But worked out. And honestly, the Jamey Eisenberg on social media accounts with the rocket ship emoji, one of my absolute favorite.
A lot of it is done
see.
in jest, but people still understand like this is a guy that's about to.
They can tell the funny rockets from the legit rockets.
Right, they
Sometimes.
can sense sarcastic rocket ship emojis.
Yes.
They really can. All right, let's get to the running back. So, Jamey, who were some guys that you're looking at on the waivers at the running back position?
It's really a position in flux right now because we have some injuries that we're keeping an eye on, specifically in Tampa Bay and Arizona. So if Bucky Irving's going to miss any time, then that brings Sean Tucker into play. Rashad White would be the priority, but again, 65% roster percentage. He's over that at 79%. But on some other sites, he might be available. But I think you're looking at Woody Marks right now as the number one guy to go get, coming off the strong game that he just had against the Titans. And the Baltimore Ravens, in case you haven't looked, they cannot stop anybody. They give the most fantasy points to opposing running backs right now. So Marks has a great opportunity to build off the Week 4 performance into Week 5. Sean Tucker is a little tough to trust because we don't know if Bucky Irving's going to miss any time. We don't know what the split will be between Tucker and Rashad White. But last year, White missed Week 6 against New Orleans, and Sean Tucker was an absolute monster. Had 146 rushing yards and a touchdown, 3 catches, 56 yards, and a touchdown. And so will he just get that much of a big opportunity? It's a tough matchup, though, against Seattle. Kenneth Gainwell on a bye this week. I don't care. Roster him because if Jalen Warren's going to miss any time, you just saw 30-plus PPR points against the Minnesota Vikings. Kenneth Gainwell may be the starting running back for the Steelers moving forward. We just don't know how it's going to all work out. But obviously, if Warren misses any time, you want to go and make sure Gainwell's on your team. Justice Hill, I think we're going to see a lot of negative game scripts for the Ravens moving forward because no Lamar Jackson potentially for 2 weeks because their byes in Week 7. Defense is awful right now. When they are trailing, Derrick Henry's not on the field. Justice Hill is on the field. So roster him. And then Tyjae Spears, another guy we've said for weeks now, pick him up because now he's eligible to play. Now people are going to be clamoring for him. You had the opportunity to do it a few weeks ago when he was cheap. Now you might have to spend a few more fab dollars to go get him, but still pick him up because he may be a spark that the Titans offense needs right now. That team is terrible, and maybe Tyjae Spears is the answer that they've been waiting for, but certainly something that could help.
Yeah, they're certainly terrible. Just take it from Cam Ward's words, and I will not repeat them because I don't think I can say them on TV.
I said it on our podcast today. So
You did? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll leave it to you.
Yeah.
You can say it on the pod. Quarterbacks. Let's talk quarterbacks because,
Sure.
Jamey, you kind of mentioned it with Lamar, hamstring injury. We're not really sure what the deal is there. Maybe you're someone like me who drafted Caleb Williams because I had Joe Burrow, who is now on IR, and the week that I picked him up was the week he was going against the Cowboys. That worked out beautifully. Worked out okay last week, so I don't really know if I should stick with him or
You can't
look
use him this
elsewhere.
week because he's
No.
on bye, so now you need to find another quarterback, and that's the other thing. There's 4 teams on bye.
Yeah.
We're going to start hitting those bye weeks. Week 8 is going to be an absolute nightmare. Get ready for that. But the quarterbacks to add this week, there's some interesting names, and some of these guys could be good rest of season. I just wouldn't have high expectations for any of them. The top name on the list is Tua Tagovailoa, and it's just because he's taken on Carolina. Carolina's actually done a nice job against quarterbacks until last week. Drake May had a great game and an efficient game against them. 2 touchdowns, didn't even throw 20 passes. I know I just said that. I don't expect the Dolphins to necessarily throw as much. I do believe in that, but Tua Tagovailoa can be an efficient passer. He's a borderline number 1, number 2 fantasy QB in my rankings this week. Jackson Dart is second. 2 reasons. Number 1, and he just lost Malik Nabers, so that upside, it's gone a little bit. But number 1, he's going to run, and he looked great running the football last week, so I think he can continue that. And number 2, it's a long-term play. And let me throw in a third thing. He's taking on the Saints. Every quarterback to take on the New Orleans Saints this year has scored at least 20 fantasy points. I think Jackson Dart will be next. The third name on my list was Bryce Young. And it's not because of anything he's doing. It's everything that has to do with his matchup. He's going up against the Miami Dolphins. It is not necessarily one that's going to mean huge numbers for Bryce Young, but I would rather take a chance on him when he's going up against a Dolphins team that allows a ton of fantasy points. I think it's like 29 fantasy points to every single quarterback that they face. It's something crazy like that. And I think Bryce Young can at least get close to 20. Again, I'd rather have Jackson Dart rest of season than Bryce Young, a 1-week thing for BY in your lineup as a bye week replacement.
Okay, and Jackson Dart, you said it might be more of like a long play sort of situation. Let's go to tight ends. We already kind of talked about it with Darren Waller. You have to think he's at the top of your list,
He is at the
considering
top of the list, no
the night
question.
that he had last night.
Sure, and he's not the only one. And it's a good thing, too, because I feel like tight ends are a mess right now in fantasy. If you don't have a stud who you can just trust, and there might be like 3 studs at this point, then you've got to go to the waiver wire and find a second guy. And again, the bye weeks are kicking in, so Waller's the one that I think is the best option rest of season and for this week against Carolina. It's a pretty favorable matchup against the Panthers. And then Brenton Strange, double-digit PPR points each of his last 2 games, 9.9 PPR points in 3 of 4 games this year. So you can take a chance on him. He's more of a high floor play. He's going to need to score a touchdown to be really good. They might need some of those against Kansas City on Monday night, though, in Jacksonville. And then the third name on this list, Mason Taylor, had double-digit PPR points. More importantly, he's played 70+% of the snaps every game this year. Now he's starting to get more involved in the passing game, and the Jets are in desperate need of a number 2 target getter in that offense. I think it's going to be Taylor. And because there's so many tight ends that are available, I think you can get him on your second or third waiver run. I think you could get him for less than 5% of your fab budget. I know I did in one of my leagues. I think that Mason Taylor is somebody that fantasy managers can grab now. Maybe you don't start him right away, but he could end up being a top 12 tight end rest of season.
I do think I have Brenton Strange on one of my benches because I'm a homer, so it's the one time that maybe
you and Pete Prisco.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's the mayor, and I'm whatever, second to the mayor, I don't know, of Jacksonville. All right, really quickly, guys, players that we need to drop right now. Jamey, who is it for you?
You know, it's tough to say that go up from the start of the week to somebody you're dropping, but Geno Smith was bad last week, unfortunately, with the 3 interceptions, and I don't want to trust him against the Colts in a 1-quarterback league. Despite the 4 teams on a bye, despite the potential injury of Lamar Jackson, it's a pretty good week for quarterback, and we're talking about guys that could still help you. So Geno Smith is somebody I think you can move on from. I'm curious with the Browns tight ends. I have them on players to drop, but there is now Cedric Tillman out, and we'll see what happens with the vacancy there and maybe the opportunity for those 2 guys, or at least one of those 2 guys, to step up. Travis Hunter's tough to get rid of because there's still so much optimism and potential for him, but he just had a season-high 42 yards receiving. Like, I don't see a path to huge success for him right now with the way that Trevor Lawrence is playing. And then another guy that should be on this list, unfortunately, along with Malik Nabers, is Tyreek Hill. So we have 2 guys that are rostered in 100% of leagues that you have to move on from, but that's just what happens when there's injuries. And I think you just have to say, we'll see you hopefully in 2026.
And if you go back to that list, if you have any of those players on your team and you're not starting them, they're on your bench, it's the perfect time to go. If you can't even get Woody Marks, Kenneth Gainwell, somebody who long-term could end up being the best running back in Pittsburgh. We don't know yet if that's going to be the case, if he's going to work in tandem with Jalen Warren, who knows, but you might as well speculate on him and get him on your team now.
Okay. All right, guys, we certainly appreciate it. I appreciate it. My teams are not great, but there's still a lot of time to get better. We're going to be having lots of rocket ship emojis for myself from here on out.
But not the sarcastic kind.
No, the legit, we mean
legit rockets.
Rocket ship emojis, correct. Thank you, Dave. Dave, what can we look forward to on Fantasy Football Today with the crew?
If you want more in-depth analysis on the waiver wire, we just recorded a 75-minute episode.
Let's go.
You can download it wherever you get your podcasts, or you can watch it and comment on it on YouTube by liking and subscribing. And tomorrow, Wednesday, we are redrafting the first round. And it's going to look pretty different from the first round that everybody had back in August.
Still to come, the Champions League is back. We got Jimmy Conrad, John Buckets Eimer. So we have Jimmy John, free smells, best bets.